Well, hey, Vision. Got some good news for you today. We're going to spend some good time together, and I believe this can change everything for you. It really can. I'm glad you're here in person, or if you're watching on Facebook Live. And in fact, when I went in the back, I had a text from our couple that got married yesterday. We had our first wedding here inside of Vision, Micah and Gracie Peeler, and they texted me and said they are watching on their drive down to their honeymoon. So, hey, how about everybody make some noise for our new couple? Yes, we love them. And I want to add to that, even if you're watching at home or at work or somewhere and something grabs your heart this hour, get back here in person at 11:15. We want you here. Now, guys, we're wrapping up our series. I love this concept. It's called The Life You've Always Wanted. Because don't we all have kind of pictures in our mind, pictures in our head of what life could be like or should be like, or we want it to be like. And we think about relationships, we think about career, we think about our resources we have. We say, God, I want a better life. I want a life that matters, a life that's meaningful, a life that's victorious. That's the kind of things we all think about. We've been talking about it for 5 weeks. We've been digging into the Bible, and we've also been digging into this book called The Life You've Always Wanted. And if you're new here at Vision and you don't have one yet, we've got a couple dozen left in the lobby. We start off with 200, and people are taking them, one per household, and it is our gift to you for free. So if you don't have one, make sure you get one as we kind of track along with this through the study. But today we're talking about finishing your race well, having the endurance to get to the end of it and say, man, this has been the life I wanted, and truly feel like you are winning, you're content, you're successful. Now, to get to that end, that hope, sometimes we have to go through some suffering. So I'm going to talk today about how suffering can lead to hope. And so I'm going to talk personally about a story in my life when I suffered, when I went through something that I guess it was self-inflicted. And Meg still shakes her head thinking, why did I ever do that? Because about 15 years ago, I trained for a triathlon. Now, if you look at me, I'm no Olympic athlete, okay? I can do a couple things athletically. I can run a little bit. 15 years ago, I could run more than I can run now, okay? I can ride a bike a little bit. And back in May of that year, I could swim one lap of the pool. I thought, man, okay, I could do this. I got all three of these skills down. I could do it. So from May to September, I went into training. And I was good on the running, and I was okay on the biking, and I was terrible on the swimming. And eventually I could swim down and back, and then down and back and down and back. And I'm like, I'm going to have to swim a mile in Moss Lake. Has anybody here ever swam a mile straight before? A mile. That is a long way to swim. You think you get in the pool and you go down and back, you're doing good? It took me over a half an hour to swim a mile. Okay, down and back, that's like half a minute, right? That's like a minute. So I'm training for this triathlon. I get to September, it's out at Moss Lake. We go out there on that Friday night and start looking at it, and Meg, she gives me this look like, you're going to die tomorrow. When I let you get in that water, I'm never going to see you again. And literally, my wife, she was scared. You laughed. She was not laughing. She was scared. So that day, that Saturday morning, we get up. And I go out there, and there's all these people in the water. And they're so much better than I am. There's people with wetsuits on. There's people stretching, going like, okay, I'm going for 17 minutes, 18 minutes. I'm like, I'm just going to get out of the water. I just want to survive it. So we get going, and you'll see I got this like whole, cap thing and numbers on there. I don't know if the number was like to identify me if I'm floating at the end and they got to pull me out of the water. So I get in the water, and I'm swimming along, and Meg is off on the distant shore just like looking. And there's like dozens coming in and then hundreds coming in. And she's like, where's 185? Where's 185? Has he come out of the water yet? And she's looking, and this little blue cap starts getting closer and closer and closer. And literally, when I got to that shore and like my suffering of swimming was complete, I'm like, I'm done. Is it over? They said, no, Matt, you still got to ride the bike and you still got to run. It's like, okay, at least I can't die in those, right? I can't die. So it continued. I got out of the water, and I'm like, oh, this is so fun. I'm so glad I'm doing this. And I'm just suffering. I'm just wearing it all over myself, thinking, what was I thinking? So I go and I get on the bike, and you get on the bike and you think, now it's getting easier. Okay, at least I can cruise, right? Okay, have you ever been on the roads out there by Crowder's Mountain? There's not a lot of cruising that happens. That's why they call it the mountain. You go down a little bit, and then you go up and down and up. I rode the bike for 30 miles, and I swear the last 2 miles, I'd have given anything to get off the bike and just run, because things got raw, okay? It was, oh my goodness, it was suffering at an intense rate. So we finally get to downtown Kings Mountain, and I start running. Now, okay, this is back in the day when I could actually go without my shirt. So, okay. So anyways, I'm running, and it's so mean what they do, because you start downtown, you'd run to the high school and back, and they say, you're halfway done. I'm like, no, I want to be done. And you turn around and run back to the high school and back. And so I'm coming down, and I'm kind of smiling, but I'm really inside thinking, I just can't wait to collapse. And I get to the end of it, and let's see, next picture, and there is Emmaus, who's up here singing this morning. So you can tell how long ago this was, and he has no idea his dad is about to pass out and die right there on that bench. And you can kind of tell like the red in my face, and there's like lack of fluid and blood in me, and I literally felt like I was going to die. But I made it through the suffering, and I got to the end. So we think about life, and we say, okay, how are we going to get through some of the patches of suffering, or the seasons of suffering, or the years of suffering, so that we can get to a hope that is worth getting to. Now, this concept of suffering, John Ortberg talks about in the book. This is the one piece I want to read you today out of here. And I encourage you, again, if you don't have a book, pick it up in the lobby on your way out. It's free. It's our gift to you. Chapter 13, this is one I want you to read this week. And in here, real quickly, it says, the start of a race is enjoyable. Just like at mine. Hey, everybody's on the beach, feeling good, feeling hopeful. Well, that's easy. Finishing is hard work. To finish well, that's glory, right? Like in our life, if we get to the end of it and we finish well, that is glory. Finishing well is what counts. How will we run the race of life? Will we finish well? Well, the capacity to finish well is what the New Testament writers called endurance or perseverance. It is the virtue by which we become increasingly able to honor commitments that ought to last a lifetime. It's especially the ability to honor commitments when honoring them becomes difficult. I want to help you with that. God wants to help you with that. Now, we think about getting to a spot of hope and getting through some suffering to get there. We can make it. We can be faithful to the commitments we make. We can be faithful in our relationships and say, God, help me be a better spouse or be a better parent or be a better friend. Help me be faithful in my relationships. Help me be faithful in my calling. Maybe you're a student, or you got a job, or you're managing your family. You say, I want to be faithful to that commitment, to my calling. I want to be faithful to my resources, to manage my time well. I mean, do you ever feel like you're just mismanaging your time, or mismanaging your money, or mismanaging your abilities? You say, God, I want to do better at that. This is not the life I wanted. I want to do better at being faithful to those commitments. And I think inside of us, we'd even say, God, I want to be more faithful to you. I want to walk more with you. I want to listen to you and actually obey you. So when I get to the end of my race, I feel like I ran it well. And I truly have a sense of contentment and peace that I finished with endurance. Now, in the Bible, we pull scripture out that helps build our bottom lines. So if you got your takeaway card, it's on your Bible app, you look at today's takeaway, you look at today's bottom line, it's really pretty simple. That we can be faithful to get to the finish of our race because we have a leader who was. Because Jesus was faithful in his race. That this guy Jesus that we sing about being resurrected, but he's got a reckless love for us. We can follow his example, that he endured to hope, so that we also can endure to hope, and we can finish well because he finished well. So that when suffering feels so heavy that you can't go on anymore, you know you've got a leader you can follow to get to that finish. To finish with perseverance and endurance. The Apostle Paul wrote about it in Romans 5. He talks about this process of suffering leading to hope. It's really pretty simple. He says, let us glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering, it produces something. So say suffering. Okay, suffering produces perseverance. So say perseverance. Okay, and then perseverance, that produces something. You say, yeah, man, it's pain. It's awful. No, perseverance, it produces character. So say character. And then the great news is that character shaping in you? It does. It produces hope. So say hope. All right, so repeat after me. Suffering. Perseverance. Character. Hope. That's a pretty good process. That when you're going through the suffering and you can't remember what it's going to produce, remember it's going to produce hope. It will do that. And again, you can endure to your finish because Jesus endured to his finish. You can do that. He wants to help you with that. So today, I'm going to tell a couple stories out of the Bible that can help us to understand this better. So first of all, I want to start out with Abraham and Sarah. All right, so I've got two friends that are going to come up here and help me with that. So if Nevin and Brenda, I think they're out here somewhere, they're going to come on up, and they're going to play the part, kind of like in a movie. Today, playing the part of Abraham and Sarah, we have Nevin and Brenda. So if you guys would, make some noise for these guys. Come on up. And I appreciate that Nevin, even he has got a staff from his days up in Pennsylvania. He brought up here. You guys can sit right here. Now, granted, I got a little issue with Nevin, just an aside on this, because they're from Pennsylvania, and they are rooting against my Wolverines tomorrow night. They're rooting for Villanova. But I still love them. That's cool. I love you guys, and thank you for being a part today of playing the part of Abraham and Sarah. And if you're new to church, new to the Bible, that's cool. I will unpack these stories for you so you can understand them. But way, way, way back in the Bible, there's this guy, Abraham and Sarah. And they were promised, literally, God spoke to Abraham and promised something to him, that he'd be the father of many nations. That literally, when he looked up and saw the stars, he'd have that many descendants someday. And then they got older and older with no kids and still no kids. And you talk about suffering, I say, God, this is a part of who we should be, is to have kids. You even promised it. Where is it? And they had to go through a long season of suffering, believing that there would be a hope. Now, in their story, eventually a child was born. A child named Isaac. And I've asked you to ask Davis if he'd come up here and play the part of Isaac. So Davis coming up here, and hey, let's hear it for Davis stepping in as Isaac. So if you would take a seat right there, and you imagine if these guys had been waiting decades and decades to have a child, what a gift. I mean, what an amazing opportunity in life to say, God, you brought hope. This is the way that we're going to be parents of generations of people for years to come. The promise has been fulfilled. We have hope. But then something goes strange. And God speaks to Abraham again and says, actually, I need you to give him back. I need you to be willing to give me your son. And Abraham, I think he's like, God, are you sure? Am I hearing you right? Because this is the hope. This is the way it's going to happen. He says, okay, God is telling me I have to go and give back my son. Now, they go on this journey, leaving mom behind. I'm sure mom's wondering, what's going on? Why are you taking wood? Why are you taking stuff for an offering? Take a look in Genesis 22. It says these guys went on this journey. They start going up this mountain. It says Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering. He placed it on Isaac. He literally went up there, built an altar, put Isaac on it, even when everything in him said, this is not right. I can't do this. God said, you have to be faithful. If you want to endure, if you want to persevere, you have to trust me. There is hope on the end of this. Whew. He said, okay. He placed this wood on his son Isaac. He himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them went on together, Isaac had spoken up and said, hey, Dad, I know we're going up a mountain to make a sacrifice. Where's the sacrifice? Where's the lamb or the ram or the animal that we're going to sacrifice? Abraham, he said in verse 8, son, God will provide. God is going to somehow do something in this to carry us on to hope. I am suffering right now. You know, as a daddy, how many dads you got in here? How many dads you got in here? I'm a dad. I'm thinking, how would I feel? I'd feel awful. I'd feel scared and panicked and confused walking up the mountain with my son. I lay him down. I get ready to kill him because God said, you got to give him back. I said, really? Are you sure? Are you sure? So let's pause that story. Now we fast forward way up this timeline to the time of Jesus. Now there was this guy. His name was Barabbas. Barabbas is the guy you would not like. Barabbas is the guy who assaulted you or killed your friend or led some type of revolt that was pushing against you and your family, so you would not like Barabbas. All right, so Brandon Hirschberger, you out there? Brandon. Okay, Brandon, and somebody laughed at that. I guess they like him playing a part of Barabbas. Okay. So Brandon, you coming up here. Wow. They're mad at him. Okay, so hold off just a minute, because this guy Barabbas, I know you're smiling. You're like, oh, that's a nice guy. That's a friendly guy. Not in this story, he's not. This guy Barabbas, I want you to think of him and what he would have done if he came into your house and he assaulted your family. He stole from you. He killed somebody you knew. Okay, how would you treat him if he did that? Make some noise. Tell me. Come on, louder. Come on, louder. Okay. Okay, so this is Barabbas. Barabbas living in the time of Jesus. Barabbas, a guy who it sure seems like deserved to die. Now, it's strange, though, because when you think about people that deserve to die, you think about people like him. You don't think about people like Grandma. Okay, like take a look. You got this picture of Grandma. Now, everybody ever had a grandma in their life who you said, oh, I just love Grandma? I do. Now, Jenny, will you come up here? Okay, so Jenny is going to come here. Jenny is a grandmother. Just, walk on up. And she, of course, loves her kids, loves her grandson. If you're on Facebook for like 30 seconds, you'll figure that out. Okay? She loves, so go ahead and take a seat right here. So how could anybody hate her? How could you deserve to die? I mean, he deserves to die, but you don't deserve to die. You're a grandmother that loves your little grandson. You take care of people. You serve at church. How could you deserve to die? Okay, how about Billy Graham? Billy Graham, who just passed recently, surely he would not deserve to die. So, Chris, will you come on up here? Chris Dukes is going to play the part, and this is a big calling. I just say, okay, who could I ask to play Billy Graham? Chris Dukes. This is a good guy. Now, granted, he's an Ohio State fan, so I got to get past that. But, Chris, thank you for being part of this. Take a seat right there in the middle. You think about Billy Graham, a guy who loved people, gave himself. I mean, a picture like this is such a picture of Billy Graham, not in front of the thousands, Billy Graham in front of kids saying, I will get in your world and love you right where you're at. Surely, Billy Graham, he doesn't deserve to die. He deserves to die. Tell me again what you think about him. Yeah. He deserves to die. He deserves to die. Now, okay, so again, in Jesus' time, Jesus, like we saw in the transition video, was marching toward death. He knew it. Other people didn't know it, but he knew it. He was marching toward death because back hundreds of years before that, in the book of Isaiah, this is what it was said. It was said, he was oppressed and afflicted. And this is called prophecy, literally predictions. It said, he was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. This was prediction or prophecy of Jesus, saying Jesus is the one who's going to come and be the sacrificial lamb for Billy Graham, for Grandma. And you're like, not for Barabbas. Certainly not for him. But you look back 2 verses in Isaiah 53:5, it says, but he, Jesus, again a prediction, he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we're healed. So literally, would Jesus die for him? Well, let's come back to this story. Because this guy right here, many, many years before that, went up on a mountain with his dad, hoping that somehow he would be saved. And in that moment, when he said, Daddy, are you really going to kill me? And his dad said, God's going to provide somehow. And he heard exactly what you're hearing right now. Very well. He heard the sound of an animal. Thank you, Mace. This is Lammy, playing the part of a lamb. She's actually a baby goat, but she looks like a lamb. All right, so this is Lammy. Yeah, good girl. Nice to meet you. Oh, hang on, girl. So in this moment, when the dad thinks he's going to have to kill his son, and God provides a substitute, a sacrifice. Now, somewhere between this story and this story was something called the Passover. In the Passover, the people of Israel, they were in captivity. They had been held in slavery to the Egyptians, hoping they could be set free. Literally, symbolic of us in our sin, hoping we could be set free. Now, in this story, families would get to know animals like this personally. They would raise animals like this to where your kids would love them and name them, and girls would do their hair and all their nails and all that stuff, to where they would know these animals. And yet when Passover came, it was a night when God had said, I am going to come into that town, and if you believe in me, you're going to kill a lamb. Now today, we are not killing any animals. I promise you. No fear. No fear. But in that time, you'd have to. That in the Geither household, they would have to go out back and find something like lammy and say, guys, if we're going to be a part of Passover, we have to kill this lamb and paint the door frames red. And it's called Passover because the death angel would then fly over that town and look for a home, and if he went by the Gamble house and they weren't painted red, the firstborn would die. And if he went by the Geither house and the door frames were painted red, he would pass over. So when you come to this time frame in history, they knew about Passover. They knew about a sacrifice that had to be given so that you would be passed over to the sentence of sin and death. So back to the story here. We think about Barabbas, this guy who literally had a death sentence. That he was marked with sin and with a death sentence that he will have to die for. Now, the interesting thing is, sin doesn't pick and choose. Sin marks us all. Sin marks grandma. You're like, no, not grandma. She's so nice. She cooks for us. She loves us. She never said a mean word. Grandma, you're marked as well with a death sentence. You're like, okay, surely not Billy Graham. Man, he was tight. Him and Jesus were tight. Billy Graham was marked with a death sentence. And when you're marked with that, you can't do anything to get it off you. You go way back in time, and Isaac, he was marked with a death sentence. On that day, that animal took his. And Dad and Mom, yes, we came through our suffering, we made it to hope. We didn't really know it was going to produce perseverance and character in that moment, but it did, and it produced hope. We got our son back. They had no idea that it was a picture of Passover, and Passover was a picture of these guys. And these guys, if you're being honest, they're just like these guys, because many, many years before that, you guys have been marked with a death sentence. Even as good as Sarah was, even as much as they try to be good parents and good people, they were marked with a death sentence. And before we get all high and mighty and look at Barabbas and look at them, we got to realize that actually, I'm marked with a death sentence. So what do we do about that? Well, the Heavenly Father that created you and created everything, He sent His Son. And that's where this gets emotional, because I'm a dad. And here sits my son. And I say, would I be willing to give him up? Maybe for her. Maybe for him. Not for him. Not for the worst person I could imagine. Would I be willing to give up my son for them? And God looked down and said, my love for you is so strong and so deep and so powerful that I will send my son. Because, okay, how many parents in here? You're a parent, raise your hand. Now tell me this. Is it easier for you to take the whipping, for you to take the beating, for you to take the bullet, or for you to watch your kid take it? And somebody that would whip or beat or shoot a bullet into your kid, you say, no way, man, I'm taking that. God said that's not how it can work here. I have to send one who will be perfect and blameless, who will be like that Passover lamb that I would be willing to give up for anyone who has a death sentence. And so what I need you to do now is the way you treated Barabbas, I need you to treat him. How do you feel about him? Come on, tell me. You hate him. Come on, tell me. Kill him. Come on, tell me. I need to hear it. I need to hear it. I need to hear it. Because that's what the people treated him. That's the way people shifted from Barabbas to Jesus, and everything they'd heaped on him, it got shifted to him. And the father, oh, how that would feel as a father. When Barabbas, come over here, and take your death sentence and put it on him. And Billy Graham, and you can step off now. Billy Graham, put your death sentence on him. And Grandma, you put your death sentence on him. And Sarah, you put your death sentence on him. And Abraham, put your death sentence on him, and you guys can step off. And yes, little Isaac, come, you put your death sentence on him. And all those things happened thousands of years ago. And thankfully, somebody has passed this message on generation after generation after generation. So that you're sitting here today at Vision Church, or you're watching on Facebook Live, you think, well, Pastor Matt, what about yours? And my death sentence has also been transferred to here. Now, I think about how that makes a father feel. To watch his son take the weight of that, the pain of that, even in innocence. He said, I didn't ask for this. I didn't deserve this. Well, neither did that lamb for Isaac, neither did that lamb in Passover, neither did the Lamb of God for us. And yet the Father says, my love for you it's so deep. It's so powerful. I love you so much. No matter what anybody ever tells you, you matter. You matter to me. You will always matter to me. And yes, my son took that death sentence for you. Now, I need you to understand, it got a little bit worse. Because that's what it looked like going to the cross. Now, on the cross, when all of creation reacted, said, I cannot believe this is happening. Earthquakes happened. Curtains got torn. Dead people came out of tombs. All these things happened because in that moment, when God the Father, he said, I have to let sin consume you. I have to turn away from you. I have to do that. That is how justice will be served. And Jesus, he suffered in this physically, he suffered in this mentally and emotionally and spiritually. He wore the blackness and the darkness of all of our sin, all of our death sentence, because his Father's love was so great and his love for you is so great. And so my last question for you then is, what will you do with yours?